And that's Malibu's finest. It's a great story. Bullshit. But great. You should seriously consider becoming a screenwriter. Wanna go? Then let's go! What in the actual...
Windbreakers are an item of clothing that I'm actually very fond of. They're exceptionally drippy and absolutely fly, as the youth might say. They look cool, they're the perfect thing to wear when it's a bit chilly on the side, but not like freezing cold. I personally prefer to wear them when I'm out on my morning runs, because I'd rather not have my nipples contracting frostbites while I'm hunched over trying to catch my breath. Get your mind out of the gutter. The name of the jacket itself is actually surprisingly popular, as it's been used as the title for 2 pieces of Asian media, which isn't a lot.
But it's weird that it happened twice, right?
First one comes from Korea, featuring a comic about a bunch of high schoolers competing in professional cycling. It's kind of like Yowamushi Pedal, but significantly less gay, which I'm sure is very disappointing to a lot of you watching right now. But I've actually read a good amount of the series. At the time that I'm currently recording this video, there's over like 500 chapters of this shit, and I've read about a little over 200 or so before I dropped it, so you can't say I didn't give it a fair shot. It's not bad, but it's one of those series where almost everyone on the main cast is painfully inferior to the protagonist, and while side characters were allowed to do cool shit every now and then, they were never allowed to win the races. It always had to be the MC who clutched the victory at the end, and if he wasn't able to make it to a race for whatever reason, his teammates could literally unlock the 8 gates in the middle of the competition and they would still lose because J. Joe wasn't there to grace the chapter with his presence, and that got really old after a certain point. Also, yeah, that happened. Now, the reason I brought this series up was because I heard news of a Windbreaker anime that was airing, and my immediate first thought was that they adapted the Korean comic. So you can probably imagine my surprise when I looked up the series, and rather than being greeted to an adaptation of a comic book about a bunch of punk teenagers racing on bikes as some petty form of self-expression, I instead got an anime based on a Japanese manga about a bunch of retarded children beating each other up in a world with seemingly zero adult supervision in sight. That is admittedly a very mean-spirited and uncharitable way to describe the show, but you can't say it's entirely inaccurate. I didn't think much of it at first. 2 series having matching names, whoop-de-doo, it's not a big deal. But then I started looking a bit deeper, and I found out this show actually got pretty damn popular. Not to a worldwide degree or anything, but videos gassing this anime up were getting nearly 1 million views. People were having power scaling discussions about it. The opening song posted on the YouTube channel of an official Japanese network has over 10 million hits, and it doesn't just stop there. A live-action movie adaptation has been set to release in December this year. The anime, which was produced by Cloverworks, a respectable studio with some very big names under their belt, the cast consisted of some insanely big names from the Japanese voice acting scene. This is a stacked production, which was baffling because up to this point, I had never even heard of this manga at all. I didn't even know it existed, and I was even more confused after I actually watched the show, and it was alright. I didn't hate it. It was entertaining enough that I finished the first season at least, and I had a lot of fun watching, but it's also by far one of the most unintentionally goofy shit I have ever seen in quite some time, and I mean really goofy, so much so that it was hard to take seriously at times. But as much as I'd like to spend the next 10 or so minutes egregiously making fun of all the stupid crap the anime does, actually no, there's nothing stopping me from doing that. Let's do it. Haru doesn't fit in, and for the longest time he never has. Throughout his entire life he's had to deal with an insurmountable amount of discrimination, not for his personality or actions, but instead it's the way that he looks. He was born with dual-colored hair for whatever reason, and he has heterochromic eyes. I feel like I'm typing out the physical description of a child's deviant.oc. It's absolutely tragic, man. His classmates think he's a freak, his teachers just immediately assume he's a delinquent upon seeing him, and his parents are absolutely nowhere to be seen. Get used to that, by the way. You get the picture, though. God was not kind to this kid. Fortunately, it seems like things were about to take a positive turn for him. After seemingly having left his old life behind him, he moves to an entirely new town at the beginning of the series to attend his dream school, Bofurin. Not because of the location or the effect it might have on his education to get into college or any of that boring nonsense. No, instead, Bofurin is an institution known for being infested with delinquents, being attended by some of the strongest and infamous juvenile punks in the country. So Haru figured, hey, that is the perfect place for a freak like me. I'm gonna go there, make my mark, and take over the entire playground. And that's exactly what he set out to do. The day before his orientation, he decides to don the uniform and go out for a stroll in the town. Has to at least get somewhat familiar with his new home, right? He ends up running into a girl named Kotoha who's getting harassed by random gangsters on the street and so decides to step in.
Hey man, you need to sit your motherfucking ass.
She treats him to a meal at her restaurant as thanks, and while he's eating, she decides to ask him if he's new in town since she's never seen him around and stuff. Haruka's all, I'm gonna go to Bofurin and beat up everybody and prove I'm the strongest. But Kotoha's all like, you're not that guy, pal. Which gets him all pissy and stomping out the door like he just shat his diaper. As he's left alone with his thoughts, that's when he finally starts to notice something. Aside from the gangsters from earlier, no one has once pointed out his odd appearance. There's no snide jabs behind his back, people aren't side-eyeing or clutching their belongings whenever he walks past. In fact, the only thing they've given him since he got here so far was kindness and basic human decency. Two things that are completely foreign concepts to him, and the unknown always brings unease. Thankfully, he doesn't have much time to stew in his own feelings, as the same gangsters he beat up earlier come back for seconds, and they've brought a lot of backup. And this is where the show well and truly shines its brightest. Boom, one goes down. He dashes forward. Boom, jump, spin kick, boom, grab, throw, backhand. He's going absolutely nuts, and the animation is going extremely hard. It's kind of a no-brainer since it's Cloverworks, but the action is fast-paced, snappy, and has surprisingly really cool choreography. And I'm sure there's probably a small subsect of hardened warriors in the audience right about now going, oh my god, this ain't real fighting, and like, yeah, no shit, man. Do you know what an actual street fight looks like? It's not exactly gracious. We're here to watch a moving pixel show, not footage of your drunk dad on a Friday night. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief on this one aspect as long as it means I get to see dudes beating each other up in really cool ways. I am that simple. It's everything else about the show that's the problem. Now, unfortunately, despite winning for the most part, Kotoha runs out onto the streets because of the commotion and ends up getting caught. So now he's gotta fight off like 30 dudes while keeping her safe and like, just run back inside and lock the door, you dumb fucking bitch. His leg gets cut by a knife. Slowly but surely they start to wear him down through sheer numbers, cornering them like animals. And just when it seemed like it was lights out for him...
You a first year? Thanks for holding them up.
Sorry, I forgot. You need to have subtitles or else you're a fake anime fan for whatever reason. I'll fix that.
Harry Sherful, you a first year? Thanks for holding them off.
So as it turns out, this town was at one point actually a hotspot for delinquents and wannabe gangsters who would just come around and wreck the place. That is, until the students of Bofurin started driving them out, protecting the citizens and eventually becoming these pseudo-protectors of the town.
We call them Bofurin, also known as the Windbreaker.
Say that again?
Haru and Koto are saved by a bunch of other Bofurin students, and they beat up whatever ruffians are left in the area. The town folks, having seen Haru fight them before backup showed up, celebrates him like a hero for what he's done, something that takes him completely by surprise. For once, people didn't look at him with contempt or thought he was a freak for his appearance or strength. Instead, he was appreciated, admired, but most importantly, he was accepted for who he was. Maybe he finally found a place where he could belong. Maybe, in this town, he no longer has to be content with being alone. So from here onwards, the entire story is essentially about him slowly making his way through high school as an official windbreaker, acting as the protector of the town and its people with his fellow students. This all must sound really freaking cool and deep if you're an edgy teenager with no self-awareness right about now. Okay, that was a low blow, I'm sorry. But in all seriousness, this show is pretty entertaining and fun, provided that you just never think deeper about literally anything it's showing you beyond surface level, because then it starts to get pretty fucking stupid and silly. This show is meant to be junk food. If you just want to have a good time, that's fine. Enjoy the taste and ignore the ingredients. That being said, my entire experience was a bit of a mixed bag because the dumb shit is either really funny or bafflingly cringe sometimes. It all really depends on your personal threshold of how much ridiculousness you're willing to swallow, because that's also going to affect how much of your disbelief you're willing to suspend. Me personally, I found myself asking where in the actual fuck are the adults for about 90% of the time I was watching this. And no, I'm not talking about these guys or these old bitches. I mean the responsible kind of adults, like parents, teachers, or you know, the goddamn police. I haven't seen a single authority figure during all this bullshit. Teachers are just non-existent. Where's the principal? Who's paying to keep the lights on in that school? Who's paying for the apartment that Haru's staying at, cause it sure doesn't look like he has a job, so it must be his parents? Do none of these kids have parents? Why are none of them asking for a report card and instead just letting their children roam around town playing vigilante. Pseudo, it's not that serious, bro. Do you not have whimsy, dude? Do you hate fun? You are barking up the absolute wrong tree if that is your only response to my problems. I literally don't understand how you can feasibly come to that conclusion just from this one criticism. If you take even a second to just glance at my channel... Hey, are you even listening? The picture. Just turn your brain off, dude. It's not that deep. What do you mean it's too distracting? Do you hate fun, man? Do you not have whimsy in your heart? Anyway, if you take even a single glance at my channel, then you'd know that I'm literally the last guy who would ever have a serious vendetta against brain-dead action shows. But like literally anything ever in life, there is a fine line between simplistic and just outright laziness, and this show has basically never even tried to engage with said line. My suspension of disbelief can only go so far, man. At some point you need to start establishing rules or introduce some level of groundedness to your story, or else it's going to come off as just really dumb and half-baked. It's kinda just hard to take things seriously when the only thing on my mind is why is a goddamn student walking around like he's paying for the facilities? It's so goofy and uncanny to the point that it's straight up distracting. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever read a single delinquent webtoon? Not manga, webtoon, Korean manhwas as they call it. Heck, if reading's not your thing, then just watch one Korean drama that takes place in a school with fighting in it, and you'll know what I'm talking about. These teenagers are fucking hellspawns, straight up Satan's greatest soldiers who will strip you down in public and film it for blackmail. It's cartoonishly evil behavior. Teachers in these types of stories will usually fall into one of either two categories. On one hand, they could be gigachats, powerful high forces that even the antagonists have to watch out for, else they incur their wrath and earn themselves a spanking. But on the other hand, they could be on the exact opposite side of the spectrum and be useless pieces of shit that get pushed around by prepubescent children. But it's usually for a pretty understandable reason, like maybe the bully is the son of a really rich politician who could sue the teacher to generational ruin if they touched his crotch goblin. Case in point, even in the most ridiculous of webtoons, adults and authority figures are still very much a prevalent existence within the world, acting as either the peacekeepers or at least being given a valid reason as to why they cannot act as such. In Windbreakers, they just straight up do not exist. Haru and his band of dipshits can just come and go as they please during school hours, and it's never explained why these fucking children have so much power. They're definitely not rich, they're all bums from what I can tell. Like I said, my suspension of disbelief can only go so far. Maybe I wouldn't notice all these stupid details so much if the characters were more enjoyable to watch, but yeah, these guys kinda suck. Not terrible by any means, but I wouldn't exactly call them good either, even from a purely just fun to watch perspective. Haru, for example, is supposed to be this grumpy, socially awkward outcast whose past experiences have made him bitter, cynical, and aggressively suspicious towards any positive emotions being directed towards him. And as someone who's no stranger to a little social anxiety, I very much get that, man. So tell me, why is it that I find myself rubbing my face in agony for about 80% of the time I see him on screen? This guy yells a lot. Overreacting and screaming at the dumbest shit is almost his default volume. Like, he is really loud, and it gets very annoying pretty damn fast. I get that everyone deals with social awkwardness differently, but do you have to keep screaming in my goddamn ear? Some people, I'm not naming names, will say it's cute or endearing. I say... Aside from him though, there's really not much else to say about everyone else. They're kinda just walking embodiments of tropes we've seen like a million times with no interesting spin to them whatsoever, which wouldn't be much of an issue if not for the fact that even their execution as basic character stereotypes is not particularly entertaining either. We've got the grumpy upperclassman who seems like a grouch but is actually a big softie, stoic, violent rival who's constantly butting heads with the protagonist, Kotaha who's yeah, I don't remember jack shit about her. I think she's supposed to be the mature, emotional pillar of the group, but a lot of the other dudes already fill that role, so she's kind of just a random girl who occasionally spouts some philosophical mumbo-jumbo every now and then, and I'll just be honest, a lot of the things she says just sounds like pretentious garbage, especially when you find out she's 16 years old. Literal astrology girl over here. The most memorable scene I can think of is in episode 2 where she tries to relate not judging a book by its cover with coffee beans, and in all fairness, I'm sure that shit sounds insanely deep if you're like 12 years old, which I think is the actual target demographic. Unsurprisingly, her older brother is the most interesting thing about her, and the man's just diet Gojo Satoru, but somehow even more obnoxious. And then there's this creature. She's basically Zenitsu, but without the sexual harassment and occasional cool fight scene. Take that however the hell you want, just know I hate both of them. Overall, Windbreakers is one of those shows you're either going to instantly vibe with, or if you're like me, you'll probably slowly grow disinterested the longer you go on watching. It doesn't really do anything offensively bad to warrant getting angry about, but it also doesn't do anything exceptionally well either. I know some of the fans are going to point towards the fight scenes, and while I do agree they are good, a shonen anime having good fight animation is kind of just par for the course in this day and age. The fights in your battle shonen absolutely should be good. It's your main selling point, and literally in the name. So as entitled and ungrateful as this might sound, unless you're something like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen where you're literally spamming some of the most top-notch sakuga on the market with an abundance of impact frames, I'm not exactly going to be super impressed. Sorry, but I'm not going to give you props for doing the bare minimum. In short, this series was pretty mid. Still better than Tokyo Revengers though.